I was in the garage, working on the rusted brake line of my '96 Chevy when I got the call from the bank. That was the first detonation. The kind that makes your ears ring before your brain even catches up. The woman on the other end said she needed to speak to Jason Cole about the remortgage on my house. My wrench slipped. It hit the concrete with a loud clang, echoing like a gunshot through my ribs. I must have sat there for a solid minute, hand shaking, oil staining my palms, heart racing like I was being hunted. "Who did you say?" I asked her again, already knowing the name, but hoping I'd misheard. "Jason Cole," she repeated. "He signed the remortgage paperwork on this property last month. Is he available?" I hung up without another word. I didn't scream. I didn't punch the toolbox. I just sat there, staring at the grease on my hands like I just found blood. My wife, Linda, mother of our 2 kids, my partner of nearly 15 years, had remortgaged our house behind my back. And she'd put it in his name. I knew Jason. Not well, but enough to make this all feel like a twisted punchline. He was one of those slick-talking startup types. Ran some BS boutique marketing firm out of a glass-box office downtown. I'd met him at a fundraiser Linda dragged me to last spring. He was too charming, too polished, the kind of guy who called you buddy while eyeing your wife like she was on display. At the time, I thought, whatever. Let her have her little socialite flings. She'll get bored of the city buzz soon enough. But I never imagined this. The rage didn't come right away. It was slower. Cold. Like black ink leaking under my skin. I walked inside the house, my boots leaving grease marks across the kitchen tile. The kids were at school. The silence made everything feel heavier. Linda wasn't due home for another hour. That gave me time. I went upstairs to the bedroom, our bedroom, and opened her closet. I didn't know what I was looking for, only that I had to find something that made sense of all this. In the back corner, behind her winter coats, I found a metal lockbox. I'd never seen it before. It wasn't even locked. Inside, there were papers, legal documents, a remortgage agreement, co-signed by Jason Cole, a withdrawal of over $90,000 wired to something called Cole Media Group, LLC. My throat dried up. Folded between the pages was a handwritten note in Linda's tight, loopy handwriting. "For the kids' future. I'm doing this for them. Bullshasters T." I sat on the edge of the bed, holding that note like it was a snake ready to strike. That's when I saw the second thing. Her phone. She'd left it on the nightstand. Face down. I don't usually go through her stuff. But this wasn't usual. The first thing I opened was her photos. And there they were. Pictures from a cabin, somewhere in the mountains. A place we never went. Her, wrapped in a wool blanket on a porch. Him, shirtless, pouring wine into her glass. Her laughing in a way I hadn't seen in years. Her mouth open wide, her head tilted back, no care in the world. Not a single shot of the kids. Not even a mention of me. They'd gone away together. While I was patching up busted pipes and fixing broken dishwashers at home, she was sipping wine with her lover in some rented dream. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I sat there, calm as a bomb with the timer just started. She came home at 4:30, just like she always did, wearing her soft green coat and that innocent little smile that had long since stopped reaching her eyes. "Hey, babe," she called out, dropping her purse by the kitchen counter. "Dinner okay if it's late tonight? I've got some paperwork." I stepped out from the hallway, still holding the bank paperwork in my hand. She froze mid-sentence. Her eyes flicked from the papers to my face. And for the first time in years, I saw something real on her face. Panic. But this wasn't the moment to explode. Not yet. I handed her the document, slow and steady. The bank called. "They're looking for Jason." Her mouth opened slightly, then shut. She looked at the paper like it might bite her. Her hand was shaking. I can explain," she whispered. "I'm sure you can," I said. "But you better choose your first sentence real carefully." Because after that, I stopped listening. And right there, in the quiet of that kitchen, with the late afternoon sun crawling through the blinds like the eyes of judgment, the first crack of everything we'd built split wide open. She hadn't even started to understand how deep this was gonna go. Linda didn't say a word for almost a full minute. Just stood there, shoulders square but trembling, her fingers gripping the edge of the counter so hard I thought the granite might crack. She wasn't crying. Not yet. She was calculating, running numbers behind those eyes like she always did when cornered. Her biggest mistake? Thinking she could outmaneuver me again. I could see it. She wasn't scrambling for the truth, she was scanning for the right lie. It's not what it looks like, she finally said, voice hollow. I was darting toward the papers in my hand. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I gave her nothing. Let her twist. She stepped forward slowly. You were working double shifts. The kids, their college funds were running dry. I panicked. I tilted my head. So you panicked and remortgaged our house and sent $90,000 to your friend Jason's business? Her mouth tightened. It was an investment. Don't. I snapped, sharper than I meant to. Don't you dare insult my intelligence. Her lips pressed together, but I caught the twitch in her cheek. The flicker of something under the surface. Not guilt. Not shame. Resentment. You don't understand how much pressure I've been under, she hissed suddenly, like she was the victim. Every time something breaks in this house, you act like I'm the problem. You act like I sit on my A** all day while you fix things and play the martyr. My jaw clenched so hard it ached. This isn't about a broken washing machine, Linda. This is about you giving our home away to some prick in designer shoes who thinks grind is a fancy podcast. She turned away then, arms crossed, chin up. That damn chin. Proud to the end. I believed in his company, she muttered. He said it was a solid investment. We had dinner. We talked. I made a decision. Dinner. That word lingered in the air like smoke. I took a step closer. Where? When? She didn't answer. Wouldn't even meet my eyes. That was all the confirmation I needed. I've seen the pictures, I said quietly. The cabin. The wine. Your legs in his lap. That was when she faltered. Just a flicker. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her mask shattered in the eyes first, then the shoulders sagged like she'd been punched. You went through my phone, she asked. Like that was the sin here. I laughed. I couldn't help it. The sound came out cracked, dark, foreign. You're screwing another man and laundering money into his business with my house as collateral, and you're pissed about privacy? Her face twisted. You don't know what it's like, being invisible in your own marriage. Don't you dare, I barked, stepping in. I gave you 15 damn years. I built this house with my own hands. Every nail, every pipe, every Sunday I missed out on football with the guys. I gave to you. And while I was down in the mud, trying to keep us afloat, you were playing financial roulette with some guy who wears loafers without socks. The room went silent. She didn't fight anymore. She just stood there, pale, shaking, lips parted, like her world was finally catching up with her. You want to know the worst part? I said, quieter now, leaning on the island between us. I almost bought it. I almost believed you. I told myself you were just confused, just scared. That maybe, you'd tell me the truth when you were ready. Her eyes glistened, but still no tears. Not real ones, anyway. I was ready to forgive you, I whispered. I would've. If you just said it. If you'd looked me in the eyes and told me the truth like a human being instead of a goddamn stockbroker in heels. She opened her mouth again, slower this time. It wasn't supposed to go this far. That makes two of us. I walked past her. She flinched as I brushed by. I opened the cabinet under the sink, pulled out the folder I'd started that morning. Copies of the mortgage papers. Wire transfer records. Screenshots of texts between her and Jason, one she didn't know I'd seen yet. I dropped the folder on the table. The sound made her jump. I've already contacted a lawyer, I said. But I'm not rushing. I want to make sure every single move I make leaves a mark. She looked down at the folder, hands trembling, then back up at me with eyes full of something new, fear. Why are you doing this? She asked, voice cracking. I leaned in close, lowered my voice to a growl. Because Linda, you started it. I'm just finishing the job. The next morning, she was gone. Not gone as in moved out, no. Her coat was still hanging by the door, toothbrush still wet in the cup, favorite mug still in the sink. But she was gone. No note. No call. No damn explanation. Just her car missing from the driveway and her phone switched off when I tried calling. She didn't even wake the kids. I didn't panic. Not at first. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee that tasted like battery acid and stared at the empty chair across from me. The silence in that house was louder than any argument we ever had. I waited. 30 minutes. An hour. Nothing. I texted her. Me. Where the hell are you? No response. By noon, I drove to her office. The receptionist gave me a nervous smile and said Linda had called in sick. Said she wasn't feeling well. That was the first time I realized she wasn't just running, she was hiding. So I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I dug. I called an old friend of mine, Marcus, who worked in IT at one of the bigger credit unions downtown. Back in college, he helped me wipe a hard drive clean before a professor could catch me with 3 weeks of late assignments. The guy owed me. "Can you do me a favor?" I asked. "You want me to find out if your wife's cheating?" He joked. I didn't laugh. There was a pause. "Damn. All right. What are we looking for?" "Wire transfers. Anything connected to Cole Media Group." He sighed. "That's going to take a bit, man. Might not be totally legal." "I'm not asking for legal. I'm asking for truth." It took him 2 hours. When he called back, I stepped into the garage again and closed the door, like I was about to hear classified intel. And in a way, I was. "She's been moving money to 3 accounts tied to Jason's firm. Not just one wire transfer like you thought." My heart thudded in my chest. Marcus went on. "There's a trail. The remortgage wasn't even the first. She's been siphoning funds for months. Quiet ones. Under $5,000 each. Spread out so no red flags get tripped." "How much in total?" "Just under 115,000. I couldn't breathe. "You still there?" I nodded, even though he couldn't see. Yeah, I'm here." He hesitated. "Look, man, I'm not going to say anything, but that's not something a woman does for her kids." I hung up. I couldn't look at the house the same way anymore. Every corner, every wall, every picture frame with our wedding photo, or the kids in Halloween costumes, they all stared back like traitors. Like they knew. Like they'd watched her do it while I slept 5 feet away. She came back that night. I heard the garage door creak open around 10, quiet as a thief. I didn't move. I was already sitting in the living room, lights off, waiting. She jumped when she saw me. "Jesus, you scared me." "Where were you?" I asked flatly. I needed space. "Where?" "Just out." I went for a drive. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She dropped her keys into the bowl like it was just another Tuesday. Like she hadn't stolen 6 figures from under my nose and dumped it into her lover's hands. "You were at his place," I said, more a fact than a question. Her silence confirmed it. I stood up. My pulse was hammering, but my voice stayed cold. "Tell me something, Linda. What's the endgame here? You planning on riding this fantasy until it crashes? Or were you hoping I'd just roll over and let it happen?" "I was going to tell you," she muttered. I barked a laugh. "Sure. Right after the wedding invitations go out?" That cracked her. Her lips pulled back in a snarl. "Don't be dramatic." "No, dramatic would have been me throwing your crap on the lawn this morning. Dramatic would have been calling the cops and reporting fraud." I stayed calm. "But don't you dare talk to me like I'm the one losing it." And then she had the nerve to cry. Tears started rolling down her cheeks, and she came toward me, hands out like she still had the right to touch me. I was scared. "Okay?" Jason made it sound like a sure thing. He said he could flip it, double the money. I just wanted to feel needed. Useful. I backed away like she was toxic. "Useful," I repeated, voice low. "You could have told me. You could have brought it to me. We could have figured it out together. But no, you went behind my back and threw our entire life into the hands of a guy whose biggest asset is his cologne." More silence. More lies waiting behind her lips. "I know about the other transfers," I added. Her eyes widened. "Yeah, Marcus found them." "You think I'm stupid, Linda? You really think I wouldn't find the trail?" She didn't answer. And I realized something in that moment. She wasn't sorry. She was caught. There's a difference. Regret isn't about guilt. It's about consequences. She opened her mouth. I stopped her. "I'm moving the mortgage," I said. She blinked. "What?" "Every cent you transferred. Every form you signed under false pretenses. I'm shifting it into his business." I found the loophole. He signed off as a co-borrower. He didn't know I saw it, but I did. He's on record. "You can't do that." I stepped forward. "Watch me." Her voice cracked. "What will you tell the bank?" I smiled. "Nothing. I'll let them call him. Let's see how Jason explains a mortgage on a house he doesn't live in, doesn't own, and doesn't want." She stood there, frozen. Like the foundation she built her lies on had just cracked open and started to swallow her whole. And that was only the beginning. The next day, I didn't go to work. I called in and told my boss I was dealing with a family emergency. He didn't ask questions. He knew my voice well enough to hear the storm behind it. Instead of punching in, I sat at the dining table, laptop open, bank sites pulled up, documents spread across the surface like evidence at a trial. I wasn't just planning revenge. I was laying blueprints for ruin. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the usual sense. It wasn't fire or fury. It was something colder, purposeful, like ice spreading through veins. Anger burns out quick, but this was the kind of fuel that lasts. Linda tiptoed around the house like a guilty child afraid of waking a drunk father. No music, no humming, no idle chatter. Her footsteps were cautious, and every time I looked up from my screen, I could see it in her posture. She was waiting for the axe. She just didn't know where it would land. I let her wonder. She finally broke late that afternoon. Came into the room, hair still damp from a shower, sweater hanging loose on her frame like it no longer fit her skin. Her eyes were red, not from crying, I think, but from not knowing when to. "I want to talk," she said quietly, hands clasped in front of her like she was about to recite scripture. I didn't look up. "You had months to talk." Her voice trembled. "I never meant for this to happen. Jason, he was just someone to talk to. I didn't think it would spiral like this. He said it was just business, that we were helping each other." "Did you two ever touch?" I asked, dead calm. She flinched. "What?" I finally looked up. "Did you touch?" Silence. Her mouth opened, but her voice caught. Then she gave the tiniest nod. "Once." It wasn't rage I felt in that moment. It was relief. There it was. The rot. Named and confirmed. The thing I'd felt crawling behind the wallpaper of our marriage for months. "You slept with him," I said. A statement, not a question. She sank into a chair like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. "I didn't plan to. It just happened." I laughed bitterly. That's what people say when they did plan to. They just regret the timing. "I was lost," she whispered. "No, you weren't," I replied. "You were found. By someone who made you feel something you hadn't felt in years. And instead of dealing with that like an adult, you sold our home like it was your goddamn diary." She didn't argue, just stared down at the table like it might open up and swallow her whole. I reached into the folder beside me and slid a copy of the amended mortgage agreement across the table. She stared at it like it was a bomb. "I've been on the phone with a contact at the county assessor's office. Turns out, when a co-borrower signs without reading the fine print, they can legally be held liable for the debt, even if they're not on the deed. Especially when the property is in a trust." Her mouth parted in shock. "You put the house in a trust? 6 years ago. You signed the papers. Don't you remember? Said you trusted me to handle the legal stuff." I leaned forward. "So here's what's going to happen. I'm moving the loan under Cole Media Group's liability. It'll pass the risk off onto the company. That way, if the bank forecloses, and I'll make sure they consider it, they're going after him." "You can't," she started, but I raised a hand. "I can. And I already did." The look on her face was worth every sleepless night. That thin, controlled calm she wore like armor cracked all at once. She wasn't ready for war. She'd never had to be ready. She thought deception ended when the lie was caught. But the truth is, that's when it begins. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just sat there in stunned silence as I laid out every piece of the trap. "The bank will call him by Friday," I said. "They'll want to verify the accounts. They'll ask why a marketing agency with no real estate business is holding a lien against residential property. And when they pull records, oh, Jason's going to have fun explaining why his signature's on that mortgage." I stood up and walked toward the hallway, but I paused at the edge of the kitchen. "And when he calls you, because he will, don't lie to him. Just sit there, white as drywall, and listen while his whole fantasy starts burning down." She was crying now. Soft, silent tears sliding down her face. But not because she was sorry. Because she knew. Knew that I wasn't bluffing. Knew that Jason wasn't her escape hatch. Knew that this wasn't the beginning of a new life. This was the beginning of the reckoning. And we were just getting started. By Friday morning, the phone rang. Not mine, hers. We were both in the kitchen. I was buttering toast for the kids' breakfast like it was any other day. The twins sat at the table half awake, cereal bowls untouched, arguing softly about who would get the TV remote that evening. Linda was across from me, pretending to scroll her phone, trying hard to look composed. But when her ringtone cut through the kitchen noise, harsh, sudden, sharp, her body jolted. She stared at the screen for 3 long seconds. Then 4. Didn't move. I could read it from upside down. Incoming call, Jason Cole. Her thumb hovered over the screen, then tapped decline. I smirked. What's wrong, babe? I asked casually. Telemarketer. She said nothing. Just rose from her chair and walked out of the kitchen without a word, her coffee left untouched. It didn't matter. He called again 2 minutes later. And again. I followed the echo of her footsteps and found her in the laundry room, door half shut, whispering into the phone. I don't know what he did, Jason, but the bank called you, right? They called you, didn't they? You said this was airtight. I leaned against the wall just outside the door and listened, arms folded, heart beating like a war drum. They said the mortgage is under Cole Media now, she whispered harshly. That they're going to escalate the review because of an unsecured risk. What does that even mean, Jason? Pause. No, don't come here. My kids are home. Jason, don't. Another pause. Just fix it. I don't care how. You said this was clean. You promised. She fell silent, and I stepped back before she could notice I'd heard everything. By the time she came out, I was back at the sink, scrubbing a pan like I hadn't moved. Her face was pale, jaw set. Her hand trembled slightly as she wiped sweat from her upper lip. She didn't say anything. Didn't need to. The walls were closing in now. That night, I drove to Jason's office. Not to confront him. I had no intention of letting him see my face. I just needed to see the place. It was exactly what I pictured. Glass walls, fake wood, fancy lighting. The kind of modern, sterile nonsense that screams, I care more about appearances than substance. His name was still on the sign out front, but I noticed something funny. The receptionist desk was empty. No lights on in the main conference room. Half the building was dark. I checked online later that night. Just a hunch. The company's site was down. Their LinkedIn was gone. Jason Cole's last professional post was 3 weeks ago. Some cheesy inspirational quote about taking bold risks. I smiled. Bold risk, huh? The next morning, I was waiting in the driveway before the sun came up. Not out of insomnia, out of anticipation. And just after 7:30, it happened. A black BMW rolled slowly past our house. Slowed down. Stopped. Then backed up. It pulled into the curb, engine still running. And out stepped Jason Cole. It was the first time I'd seen him face to face since that fundraiser. Back then, he wore charm like cologne. Thick, cheap, suffocating. But this time, he looked like hell. Dark bags under his eyes. Suit wrinkled. Hair unkempt. He was no longer the polished startup king. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days, a man watching the rope slip through his fingers. He stood at the foot of the driveway, hands on hips, staring at the house like it had betrayed him personally. I watched from the upstairs window, not moving, not flinching, just watching. Then he turned and walked toward the front door. Rang the bell. Linda answered. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. I saw the body language. His hands waving. Hers folded, defensive. He stepped closer. She stepped back. I saw her lips move. Probably something like you need to leave. Then he pulled something from his coat pocket. Paper. A folder. He thrust it toward her. She didn't take it. He tossed it on the porch. Stormed off. Linda stood frozen for several seconds before she picked it up. Opened it. Flipped through the pages slowly. She looked up at the sky. Then sat down on the step like her legs had given out. I didn't go to her. Didn't ask what was in the folder. I already knew. Jason's business was crumbling. The bank was now circling. And I had triggered the first domino. What Linda thought was a power move had become an anchor, dragging them both into financial hell. But that wasn't the part that satisfied me. The part that twisted the knife in a special kind of way. I knew the worst was still ahead. Neither of them had any idea just how deep I was willing to go. And I was only halfway down the list. It started to unravel faster than even I predicted. 3 days after Jason's porch-side breakdown, Linda's sister called me. Megan. Blonde, blunt, always too curious for her own good. She asked if I'd heard the rumor that Jason's company was being investigated for securities fraud. I played dumb. Let her talk. Turns out, The bank had filed a complaint when they discovered multiple mortgages linked to Jason's business name. Ours just happened to be the first domino. Megan laughed nervously, like it was gossip. I mean, can you imagine? The guy's got loans on properties he doesn't even own. Linda must be losing her mind. I kept my voice flat. Yeah, imagine that. By the time I got off the phone, my hands were already shaking, but not with fear. With something darker. Something hungry. The kind of cold satisfaction that only comes when you know you've lit the match and the fire's finally reaching the curtains. Linda barely came out of the bedroom anymore. She wandered the halls like a ghost, answering the kids in half whispers, avoiding my eyes like they burned her. Every time her phone lit up, she jolted. She'd started sleeping with it under her pillow like a lifeline. One night, I caught her staring at the front door at 2 a.m., barefoot, wrapped in a blanket like she thought someone might come pounding at it again. Jason hadn't returned since that morning, but his silence was louder than any knock. She saw me in the hallway and froze. You waiting for him? I asked. She didn't reply. Or the repo men. She clenched the blanket tighter, the tendons in her hands like wires pulled to the edge of snapping. Why are you doing this? She asked. You mean why am I not saving you? No. I mean, why are you enjoying it? And there it was. The truth. Not the one I'd been chasing, but the one I already knew. She didn't regret the betrayal. She regretted the fallout. I stepped closer. You think this is about revenge? I said, voice low. Linda, this is about balance. You gambled with something that wasn't yours. My time. My trust. My life. Now you get to feel what it's like when the house doesn't pay out. She turned away, but not before I saw her flinch. That was the first time I noticed her hands shaking. And that's when I realized I was winning. But I wasn't done. The next day, I took it a step further. I made a visit. Not to Jason. To his investors. Thanks to a few connections I had from back when I worked in electrical contracting, I knew a guy who'd been approached to put money into Jason's company 6 months ago. Back then, Jason was talking big. AI this, market disruption that. Typical tech buzzword salad. My guy passed, but he still had the pitch deck Jason sent him. I asked him to forward it. That night, I drafted an email. Attached the mortgage documents, the trust papers, the wire transfers, and Jason's name signed next to my wife's, on a mortgage linked to a residential property far outside his declared business scope. I wrote one line in the email body. Thought you might like to see where your money's really going. Then I blind copied every contact listed in the deck. All 14. It was like tossing raw meat into a shark tank. Within 24 hours, Jason's LinkedIn profile vanished. His website redirected to a blank page. And Linda? Linda finally broke. She came downstairs after dinner, looking like a sheet of paper soaked in rain. Pale, empty, about to tear. I need to talk to you, she said. The kids were upstairs watching cartoons. The air smelled like microwave popcorn and lemon floor cleaner. I sat at the table, arms crossed, waiting. She sat across from me, tears already forming. I'm pregnant, she whispered. It hit like a cinder block to the chest. Except I didn't flinch. I didn't react at all. She watched me, desperate for something. Shock, compassion, anything. How far? I asked. She looked down. 6 weeks. I did the math. It didn't line up. Not with us. You sure it's mine? I asked, tone even. Her eyes filled instantly. I don't know. That was it. That was the moment I realized we were past the event horizon. Beyond the point of repair, reason, or mercy. Whatever remained between us, love, history, family, it had all been set on fire the moment she opened her legs for another man and bet the deed to our home on his empty promises. And now? She wanted me to hold her hand through the ashes? I stood up. Get a paternity test, I said. When you know, we'll talk. She reached out like a reflex, but I was already walking away. Behind me, I heard her sob. Not a dramatic wail, just a soft, choking sound like someone trying to swallow glass. But I didn't stop. I had one more card to play. And Jason, poor Jason, was about to find out what happens when you poison a man's house and think you'll walk away clean. Jason showed up at my job. It was a Monday morning. I'd just clocked in, hard hat still crooked on my head, steel-toed boots clunking across the concrete floor. I was about to start my shift wiring a new service panel when one of the front desk guys radioed over, said some business guy in a black coat was asking for me in the parking lot. Said he was using my full name and looked like he'd swallowed a light bulb. I knew before I saw him. He was pacing between two cars, a folder under his arm and sweat darkening the collar of his fancy tailored jacket. Gone was the smug, well-groomed Jason Cole. This one looked like he'd been sleeping in his car. And judging by the smell that hit me when I approached, he probably had. "Terry," he said, like we were on a first-name basis. "Listen, man. I need to talk. Seriously." I didn't stop walking. He stepped into my path. "Look, I know what this looks like." "No," I cut him off. "You don't know. That's your whole problem. You never stop to consider the mess you leave behind. So go ahead, talk. But you get 2 minutes." He blinked. "Okay, fine. I didn't know she used the house as leverage, man. I didn't ask her to do that. She came to me, said she had some equity, wanted to invest, help grow the business. It was just a cash injection. That's it." I said nothing. Let him squirm. He continued, voice getting higher, faster. "I didn't touch the house, man. I didn't even know my name was on the mortgage until the bank called and threatened to freeze our accounts. You set me up." I stepped in close enough that he flinched. "You put your signature on something you didn't read. That's on you." He laughed, high-pitched and desperate. "This is insane. You tanked my business." "No," I corrected. "You did that." I just pulled back the curtain. His jaw clenched. "You're gonna ruin her life, too. You know that, right?" I leaned in. "She ruined mine. Now we're even." He shook his head like a man trying to wake up from a nightmare. "I'm not gonna let you drag me down over some petty revenge crusade. You think this is petty?" I barked, my voice rising. "She sold my house, my family's home, to fund your fantasy, and you're gonna stand here and talk to me about petty?" Jason took a step back, hands up like he thought I might hit him. "I didn't sleep with her," he said suddenly. "It was emotional, all right? But we never." "T," I said. He froze. "I've seen the photos. The mountain trip. The wine. Her legs wrapped around you on that balcony." His face went sheet white. "I loved her," he muttered, like that made it cleaner. "I thought she was going to leave you. We were planning." "You weren't planning T," I snapped. "You were playing pretend, using my wife to feel like a big man. And now you're sinking." I pulled out a folded copy of the remortgage file and slapped it into his chest. "You want out of this? Call the bank. Take the loan. Make it clean. Own your mess." He stared at the paper like it might burst into flames. "You think I have that kind of money?" he muttered. I leaned in closer. "Then maybe next time you think twice before trying to build an empire with someone else's foundation." I walked away. Didn't look back. Let him stand there in his $3,000 jacket, stained with sweat and failure. By the time I got home, the kitchen was spotless. Too spotless. Linda had cleaned everything, top to bottom. Candles lit, dinner made, even the good dishes out. A peace offering. But I wasn't in the mood. She tried to smile when I walked in. "I made roast. Your favorite." "I'm not hungry." Her face fell, but she didn't argue. She just stood there, awkward, clutching a dish towel like a shield. "I talked to the doctor," she said finally. "They scheduled the test. Paternity. We'll know soon." I nodded. She hesitated. "And if it's yours? Then I'll take care of my kid," I said. "But not with you." She looked like she'd been slapped. "You really mean that?" she whispered. "I've never meant anything more." She stood there, twisting the towel, her knuckles white. "Terry, I know I screwed up. But we were broken long before Jason. We barely talked. You stopped looking at me like I mattered." "No," I said sharply. "I looked at you like you were my wife. Like someone I trusted with everything. You mattered, and you pissed all over it." She crumpled into the chair, hands shaking. "I didn't think you'd ever find out," she admitted, voice barely audible. That stopped me in my tracks. Not because of the words, but the honesty in them. For once, no spin, no manipulation. Just a raw, bitter truth. And somehow, that made it worse. "I loved you," I said. "Even when I shouldn't have. Even when I knew something was wrong. I was holding on to ashes and pretending it was still wood." She cried, real tears this time. But I didn't comfort her. I just watched. Because the part of me that would have rushed to hold her was dead. And the part that was still alive? He was planning what came next. Not for her. Not for Jason. For me. The envelope came on a Wednesday. Thick. Official. No frills. Just our address typed neatly across the front in bold black letters, and a return label from the clinic downtown. I didn't open it at first. I let it sit on the counter like a bomb. Drank 2 cups of coffee. Stared at the sun creeping across the tiles. Watched the clock. I wanted Linda to be home when I read it, not out of cruelty, but because there were still rules in this game. And some truths? They needed to land with a witness. When she walked through the door, she saw it immediately. Her eyes locked on that envelope like it was glowing. She stopped, frozen. Is that it? I didn't answer. Just pulled out a chair and slid the envelope across the table. Go ahead, I said. You open it. Her hands hovered over it, hesitating. Then, slowly, she tore it open, pulled the crisp paper out like it might bite her. Her lips moved silently as she read. Her breath caught. Then she looked up. It's yours, she whispered. No tears this time. No joy either. Just dread. I took the paper from her hands and read it myself. DNA match, 99.97%. My name. My blood. My child. But none of that made it feel real. Not yet. The betrayal was still too fresh, the knife still twisted too deep. I stood up, folded the paper, and pocketed it. So now you know, she said softly. What happens now? I didn't respond. I walked to the garage. When I came back inside 20 minutes later, I was holding a small cardboard box. Linda turned, confused. What's that? I placed it on the table. My journals. Letters. The notes I wrote for the kids. The copy of our wedding vows you tucked away in that shoebox upstairs. Everything I ever kept because I believed in us. She stepped closer. Why are you? I'm taking it to storage, I cut in. The same place I'll be taking the rest of my things. Because I'm moving out. Her face cracked open, slow and silent. You're leaving. You didn't think I was going to stay here forever, did you? I asked, eyes flat. Just waiting around like some obedient dog while you tried to patch up a life you burned to the ground? But the baby. I said I'd be a father. And I will be. I'll pay. I'll visit. But don't think for a second I'm going to be your partner again. She took a shaky breath. We can fix this. No, Linda, you can't fix this. Some things stay broken. Some things are supposed to. She looked like she might collapse. I didn't stay to watch. I walked to the bedroom, grabbed the bag I'd already packed the night before, and left the house. My house. The one I built, board by board, room by room. The sun was just starting to dip. That cold golden hour when everything looked sharper, crueler. I threw my bag in the truck bed and sat behind the wheel. For a while, I didn't start the engine. Just sat there, watching the windows of my own home glow from the inside. I remembered everything. Our first Christmas there. The time we painted the walls badly and laughed like kids. When our daughter took her first steps in the hallway. The memories were still alive inside those walls, but the soul of the place? It was gone. The home wasn't poisoned. The people were. I drove to a cheap rental I'd found on the edge of town. 1 bedroom. Peeling paint. A fridge that groaned louder than the air conditioner. But it was mine. It didn't lie. It didn't cheat. It didn't whisper promises it wouldn't keep. That night, I sat on the floor with a beer and no furniture. Just a folding chair and a stack of paper I pulled from the box I brought. At the top was a photo. Me and Linda. Our wedding day. She was beaming. I was grinning like an idiot. I stared at it for a long while. Then I struck a match and lit the corner. Watched it curl, blacken, crumble into ash. 1 photo down. Dozens more to go. But I wasn't just burning the past. I was clearing the ground. Because something new was coming. And next time, no one else gets to build it but me. The weeks that followed were quiet, but not peaceful. Every day felt like walking through a minefield with the sound turned off. No explosions, no sirens, just the heavy, suffocating silence of waiting for something to blow. I kept my distance. Didn't visit the house. Didn't return Linda's texts unless they were about the baby. I kept it sterile. Transactional. Like we were coworkers on a project neither of us believed in. And she hated it. She tried everything, texts with smiley faces, long guilt-laced paragraphs, voicemails with cracks in her voice she probably rehearsed in front of a mirror. None of it worked. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty, but because I knew what she really wanted. She didn't miss me. She missed absolution. She missed the safety net I used to be, the man who fixed broken things. But she'd made damn sure I was the one thing she couldn't fix. And Jason? He'd gone dark. The last I heard, Cole Media Group was gutted from the inside. Staff let go. Investors filing lawsuits. The IRS apparently taking an interest after one of the anonymous tips about misused funds. I never confirmed it, of course, but I do know exactly when it all started. I started seeing a lawyer. A real one. Not the online templates. Not the casual buddy in accounting type. A shark. The kind of lawyer who bills in quarter hours and makes divorce court feel like a courtroom drama on TV. Her name was Rebecca Dorsey. Calm, smart, ruthless. She didn't ask why I wanted full custody options prepared before the birth. She just nodded and took notes. You want to preempt her? She asked, scanning a folder full of financial disclosures. I want her to know I'm not playing, I said. Rebecca smiled. Good. Because she's going to. She was right. Linda's shift came exactly 23 days after I moved out. A bright pink envelope in my mailbox. No return address, but the perfume clinging to the paper was unmistakable. Inside, a long letter. 8 pages. Handwritten. No apology. Just revisionist history. She painted herself as a neglected wife, a lonely mother, a victim of a cold marriage and a hotter temptation. She never named Jason, just called him someone who made me feel alive again. She said she panicked about the mortgage. Claimed I'd abandoned the emotional part of our relationship years ago. Said she hoped we could rebuild. At the bottom, a note about her wanting joint custody, not after the birth. From day one. Like she could rewrite everything in cursive and ink and expect me to just nod along like it made sense. I didn't reply. Instead, I had Rebecca send a formal custody petition, primary rights to me, secondary visitation pending results of a psychiatric evaluation. Linda lost it. I got the call from Megan the next morning. Did you seriously hire a lawyer to take the baby? She shrieked. No, I said calmly. I hired a lawyer to protect my child. There's a difference. Megan went quiet. Then, softly, she's falling apart, Terry. Then she should have thought of that before she broke the foundation under all of us. She's not eating. She's barely sleeping. She keeps talking about how she wishes she could go back, how she didn't mean to ruin everything. Tell her, I said coldly, some things don't get rewind buttons. I hung up. The next night, I drove by the house again. I hadn't planned to. I was on my way home from the gym, and the truck just turned. Like my hands wanted to see the wreckage one more time. I parked across the street. The lights were on. Linda was sitting on the porch in her robe, hair tied up, cup of tea in her hands, staring into the night like it owed her something. For a second, I thought about going over, saying something, anything. Then the front door opened, and Jason stepped out. Jason. I froze. He didn't kiss her, didn't smile. He handed her something, a thick yellow envelope, and spoke without looking at her. She nodded. He turned and walked down the steps, got into an old, beat-up Nissan, not the BMW, and drove off. She stayed on the porch, holding the envelope like a weight. That was when it all clicked. He'd come back. Not for love. For leverage. That envelope? Probably a document dump. Maybe a threat. Maybe an offer. Linda didn't look relieved. She looked trapped. And I realized something as I sat there watching. Jason was drowning. Linda was clawing for the surface. But me? I was already out of the water. I didn't feel rage. Or sadness. I felt distance. Like I was finally standing on dry land. And they were both still out at sea, calling for help from the wreck they built together. The storm wasn't over. But I wasn't in it anymore. I was just watching the lightning fall. The envelope Jason handed her? It was a deal. A desperate one. I found out 2 days later. Linda called me, voice hollow, no emotion, like someone reading lines they barely understood. She didn't ask how I was. Didn't mention the letter. Just said one sentence that stopped me mid-step on the sidewalk outside the grocery store. Jason wants me to marry him. I didn't say anything. Not for a long time. I could hear traffic. Birds. My own heartbeat in my ears. But not her voice. Not her breathing. Just that sentence, echoing, bending, warping in my head. Wants me to marry him. I finally found words. Why? There was a pause on her end. And then, like a slow unraveling thread, she whispered, because he thinks if we're married, the liability shifts. That maybe the house debt will stick to me, not him. That it'll look cleaner. My stomach turned. It wasn't love. It wasn't even guilt. It was strategy. Jason was circling the drain and looking for someone to plug the hole with. And Linda? She was seriously considering it. I hung up. Didn't respond. Didn't need to. That night, I went through every file I had on both of them. Emails, legal docs, bank records, screenshots, all of it. I spread them across the floor like puzzle pieces, each one a receipt of betrayal. The picture they formed? Clear. Jason was trying to consolidate risk. The marriage idea wasn't about redemption, it was about paperwork. If he tied himself to Linda legally, he might escape some of the financial noose tightening around his neck. He wasn't throwing her a lifeline. He was tying her to his anchor. And Linda, cornered Linda, she thought it was a second chance. By the end of the week, they were officially engaged. She posted a photo on social media. A ring. Small. Gold. Nothing like what I gave her all those years ago. The caption? Life doesn't always go as planned, but sometimes that's a blessing in disguise. The comments flooded in. Her friends, the same ones who ghosted me the moment things went south, fawning over her strength, over her new chapter, over how happy she looked. But I saw the truth in the photo. Her smile didn't touch her eyes. Her hand was stiff. And Jason? He looked like a man posing for a photo at his own execution. I didn't comment, didn't text, but inside, the pieces started falling into place. I went to see Rebecca again, sat in her office, laid it all out quietly, methodically. I want the baby with me, I said. Full custody. I want this child to grow up somewhere clean, not in a web of lies and corporate fraud and fake affection. She nodded slowly. We can push it, but we'll need more. I leaned forward. You'll have it. Because what Linda didn't know, what Jason couldn't know, was that I'd been recording. Not just documents. Conversations. Phone calls. The one where she admitted he didn't know his name was on the mortgage. The one where she said she didn't think the baby was mine. The one where she said he was supposed to be a temporary escape. All backed up. All legal. Rebecca's eyes gleamed. You're sure about this? I nodded. Then we hit them first. Hard. The next morning, Linda got served. Not with divorce papers. That was already old news. With a petition for full legal and physical custody of the unborn child, citing intent to marry a man currently under federal financial investigation. The knock on her door hit like a battering ram. Megan called me again that night, voice shaking. She's losing it, Terry. She said she won't let you take the baby. She doesn't have a choice, I replied. And she didn't. Because when you lie, cheat, and gamble with everything good in your life, you don't get to keep calling the shots. You lose your turn. But even then, even with all of that falling into place, I knew. It wasn't over yet. Not until I burned the last thread. Not until I made sure Jason Cole paid in a currency more painful than money. And I had just the thing. I made a call the next day. To someone Jason never expected to hear from again. His first investor. The one he lied to about long-term ownership and shared equity. The man who once told me, you ever want to stick a knife in him the right way, you call me. I called. And when he answered, I said only this. You still got that audit team? His laughter on the other end was the kind of sound wolves make when they catch the scent of blood. And that's when I knew. The final storm was coming. And I wasn't just watching anymore. I was the one pulling the strings. It started like thunder under clear skies. Jason didn't even know it was coming. That's what made it perfect. That's what made it surgical. The investor I'd called, Leon Garrison, wasn't just an angry ex-backer. He was a financial barracuda. The kind of man who made his fortune not in Silicon Valley, but in the quiet, lethal trenches of leverage buyouts and hostile takeovers. A predator in a navy blue suit. Jason had charmed him once, promised him early equity in a billion-dollar idea. Took his money, burned it, ghosted him. Bad move. Leon never forgot bad moves. Within 72 hours, his audit team launched a silent blitzkrieg into Cole Media Group's financials. Turns out, Jason's company never shut down properly. Some accounts had been frozen, but not deleted. His name still sat on active filings. And here's the kicker, he'd signed a personal guarantee for investor protection. Leon sent me a photo. Jason, outside a federal building, being handed a manila envelope with a look on his face like the pavement had opened up. But I didn't smile. Not yet. Because something still needed to break. Something final. Linda called me 3 days after Jason was served. Her voice was nothing like I remembered. No manipulation, no fake sweetness. Just empty. Raw. You did this, she said. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even an accusation. It was a confession wrapped in 4 syllables of bitter clarity. Yes, I answered. A long pause. He's ruined, she whispered. The investors, his lawyer dropped him. He's talking about bankruptcy. The IRS is asking questions. I waited. And then, in a voice so small I almost missed it, she added, I told him about the baby. What did he say? Another pause. He asked if it could help him look more stable in court. Of course he did. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But then I remembered the lies. The late-night calls. The smirks. The damn wine glass photos. And I realized. No. She earned every ounce of this. He's not coming back. Linda, I said flatly. And neither am I. Silence again. Then, her voice trembling. I don't know how to fix it. You can't, I replied. You don't fix wildfires. You wait until the ash settles and pray something grows again. She hung up. No goodbye. Just silence. But I wasn't done. Rebecca filed the final custody motion the next morning, backed by evidence, recorded calls, financial records, and statements from 2 of Jason's former employees willing to testify that he'd spoken about using the baby for optics. That was the nail in the coffin. The judge moved the hearing up. We were in court less than a week later. Linda showed up in a gray dress, hairpin tight, eyes hollow. She looked like a ghost walking through her own funeral. Jason wasn't there. The court documents said, involuntary absence due to pending investigation. He'd been advised by his new attorney, public defender, to avoid compounding risk. I took the stand. Didn't cry. Didn't rant. I spoke calmly. Clearly. With years of betrayal pressed into every word. The judge listened. Nodded. Read through the stack of documents Rebecca presented. Then he turned to Linda. She didn't beg. She just said, I was scared. I made bad choices. But I love this baby. The judge didn't smile. He awarded me full legal and physical custody effective upon birth. Linda was granted visitation rights under supervised conditions until psychological clearance. It was done. Just like that. 14 years of marriage. Months of lies. 1 child not yet born. All decided in a wooden room under fluorescent lights. When it was over, I walked out into the sunlight and stood on the courthouse steps for a long time. I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel peace. I felt release. Like shackles falling off I didn't even know were there. Linda didn't come after me. She stayed inside, speaking with her lawyer, eyes glassy, mouth frozen. I got in my truck. And that's when the final message came through. From Jason. Just 3 words. You destroyed me. I stared at it. Then I typed back. No, Jason. You did. And then I blocked his number. Not out of spite. Out of closure. There was 1 chapter left. 1 moment I had to face. Not with her. Not with him. With me. And it was coming sooner than I thought. The hospital room was quiet, humming with the sterile rhythm of machines and distant footsteps. The fluorescent light buzzed faintly overhead, casting everything in that strange half-light that makes time feel like it's holding its breath. I stood there, hands in my pockets, staring through the observation window. Linda was inside, alone, cradling the newborn, my son, in her arms. He was small, quiet, his tiny chest rising and falling beneath a soft blue blanket. A new life, untouched by all the wreckage that preceded his first breath. I didn't ask to come in. I didn't need to. She looked up. Our eyes met through the glass. And in that moment, there were no lies left to tell. No words left to sharpen. Just 2 people who'd burned their lives down standing at the scorched edges, watching what survived. After a minute, she nodded once. Slow. Resigned. I stepped inside. The room smelled like antiseptic and warm linen. Linda looked pale, tired, like she hadn't slept in a week. She didn't look at me as I walked to the foot of the bed. She just said, his name's Nathan. I nodded. He's healthy. She nodded back. 8 pounds even. Quiet. Just like you. A pause. Then, you want to hold him? I hesitated, then reached out. She placed him gently in my arms. My son, warm, fragile, weightless, and impossibly heavy all at once. And as I looked into his face, those tiny, peaceful features, something cracked open inside me. Not anger, not grief, hope. He didn't ask for this war. He didn't come into this world to be pulled between wreckage and guilt and whispered blame. He deserved something better, and he'd get it. I'd make sure of that. You'll have a good life, I whispered to him. Better than the one we broke. I felt Linda's eyes on me. For the first time in months, I didn't flinch. She spoke quietly. Do you hate me? I didn't answer right away. I placed Nathan back in her arms. Looked her in the eyes. No, I said. I don't hate you, but I'll never trust you again. She swallowed. That's fair. I turned to leave. At the door, I stopped. One last truth. I don't regret loving you, I said. I regret losing myself to you. She didn't reply. She just held our son close and closed her eyes. I walked out of that hospital with the weight of 100 days behind me. A man who'd watched his life collapse, who'd been lied to, cheated on, dragged through court, humiliated, and used. And still ill. Still, I'd come out cleaner. Stronger. Not broken. Rebuilt. I didn't need revenge anymore. I had custody. I had clarity. And I had a future where every brick, every step, every choice was mine. Jason? Last I heard, he was liquidating assets and trying to avoid jail time. The IRS had teeth, and they were getting hungry. Linda? She stayed in the house alone. No engagement. No wedding. No escape hatch. Just memories and echoes and a nursery full of consequences. As for me, I got a place closer to work. Built a nursery with my own 2 hands. I painted the walls light blue and hung a mobile from the ceiling. I bought books. Swaddles. Pacifiers. Not for him. For us. Me and Nathan. My son. My second chance. And every night, when I rocked him to sleep in that quiet room, I remembered how close I'd come to losing everything. And I whispered 3 words, over and over. Never again. Never again. Never again.